Using this as a rather seductive introduction, welcome to the Steam Winter Sale, running from December 22nd until January 5th, 2023. It's the holidays. Happy holidays, everybody. Let's jump in and take a look at the best deals on offer, with time cards below for your viewing pleasure. And speaking of pleasure, it's my pleasure to introduce the first game on my list. If you haven't already gathered, this is Rust. And at 33% off, it's a reasonable discount, roughly the best that we ever see for Rust. This is a survival, crafting, and multiplayer open world like no other. While it's not a perfect or seamless experience, Rust continues to receive updates and overwhelmingly positive reviews, generally speaking. It builds a really interesting world, where its crafting system is fairly easy to understand and use, and the game as a whole is quite easy to pick up. Of course, being a multiplayer title, you can play it alone, but it is best enjoyed with friends or teams. Thankfully, Rust still has a very sizable online community around it, with events, many streamers, and all sorts of communities popping up all the time. It's a fairly easy recommendation for anybody looking to craft or survive in an open world. And if you're really interested in delving into open worlds, then you should look no further than The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. At 80% off, now is quite literally the best time to play this game for actually many reasons. If you're not familiar, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is an open-world RPG. It's an incredibly atmospheric one, I would say, and it's also very story-rich. It's up there with the greatest RPGs of all time, your Elder Scrolls, so on and so forth. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is even better to play right now thanks to the next generation upgrade, which just rolled out about a week ago at the time of recording this video. Not only does The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt now look and potentially play a little bit better, but you can pick it up for 80% off. The complete edition, only a couple more dollars than the standard. I would highly recommend you grab the full complete set for about $13 US. Moving on to the third item on my list, this one, rather interestingly, comes out of the publisher PlayStation PC LLC. From Santa Monica Studio developed, it's God of War. This is the initial entry. You might have heard a lot about God of War lately because, of course, the sequel, the runner-up to this title, performed exceptionally well, nearly topping Elden Ring, in some people's eyes, absolutely topping it, to win Game of the Year, and for good reason. So, now might be a good time for you to step back into this action single-player adventure. Again, another very story-rich addition to the list. God of War, the initial edition, released only on Steam in 2022, so it is actually still a relatively fresh title to PC. It's for that reason that its discount might not quite be as impressive as some of the other open-world titles on my list, like The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, but at 40% off, coming in at about $40 US, I can actually highly recommend this if you're looking for a single-player story-rich experience to sink your teeth into, with, of course, the potential to pick up a fantastic follow-up if you like it. Moving on to the next item on my list, and to be honest, this is one that I didn't actually think I would be putting on for its mixed reviews and the franchise's rather turbulent reputation, but here we are nonetheless with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Nominated for Game of the Year in many categories, rightly or wrongly, and of course accompanied by the free Warzone Battle Royale mode, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 has a single player and of course its notorious multiplayer experience, and the reason why it makes this list is because unlike almost any other Call of Duty in history as far as I can remember, it's on sale on PC, on Steam, at a measly but reasonable enough, I suppose, considering it only released a couple of months ago, 15% off. You can pick up the latest addition to the Call of Duty franchise at maybe the best price you've ever seen it at on PC. Moving along to a more core-focused PC experience, and maybe not one for everybody. This is the Colony Simulator strategy survival pick for my list. It's Rimworld. Rimworld also presents with a discount that might not be immediately appealing to a lot of you, at just 20% off. It's one of the least discounted items on my list. However, that is the best discount that we've ever seen for it on Steam anyway. It may differ on other platforms. Rimworld is like an iPhone. It rarely goes on special. It has a dedicated following of a reasonable number of people, and it delivers an experience that few others can truly copy, master, or reproduce. Rimworld is a colony sim, as you can see, kind of a top-down looking prison architect. Maybe you've played other titles with a graphical style like this, but I wouldn't let that put you off it. It is a wonderful game, which simulates stories around these human experiences. Psychology, gunplay, combat, melee, living in a climate with real biomes, diplomacy, ecology. This is a fantastic sci-fi colony simulation game, driven by an intelligent AI storyteller. Rimworld's a wonderful strategy to sink your teeth into. Speaking of interesting strategy games to sink your teeth into, if you're interested in more of a historical strategy simulator, then you should look to Civilization 6, the most popular one of all time, and for very good reason. Civilization 6 makes my list as the other strategy game in the video as a whole, not just because of its fantastic discount, although you can of course grab the base game at 90% off, around $7 US. Pay about twice that much to get the Platinum Edition, or if you'd like to complete the set, the Anthology comes in at 86% off, around $40 US. The reason why I bring that up is because just recently, this month, last month, and actually for another 4 months in the future, Civilization 6 is receiving updates. If you own the Anthology, or Civilization 6 and basically all of the DLC, then you'll be receiving free leaders and civilizations and new people to play as in Civ 6. A game that is now 6 or 7 years old but continues to deliver at a great price. Speaking of a great price, and jumping firmly back into the action-adventure sort of genre, but with a third-person twist, this is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Another game on this list that has a very exciting sequel penned for release in 2023. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, while of course available on Game Pass, I won't dwell on the many things that are available on Game Pass in this video because this is about the Steam sale. It's important to note that you can grab it there, but why would you want to when it's 88% off on Steam? This thing is literally available for pocket change. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order delivers, I believe, one of the best stories told in the Star Wars franchise. The gameplay is good, combining puzzle with combat and a fairly difficult, but once you master it, very satisfying overall combat and fighting system. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order not only tells a good story, but puts up a good fight. And again, for a couple of dollars and with an exciting sequel on the way, now seems like a great time to pick up Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. As we move through to the next item on my list, now moving more into the post-apocalyptic RPG space, this is Fallout 4, a very positively reviewed title, although like many games recently, including another one on this list, as well as titles from Bethesda of course, it is a little bit buggy and had a little bit of a rocky start. Fallout 4 has plenty of DLC to keep you interested, and while it is of course about that post-apocalyptic nuclear disaster RPG exploration of the open world, it has other elements that might satisfy you as well. Its base building element in particular was one that proved popular with certain sections of the community. Regardless, if you're not interested in picking up Skyrim, which also comes in at around 75% off, then you might be interested in picking up Fallout 4. The story is pretty good, the world is enjoyable, and for around $5 to $6 US, you generally can't go wrong with picking up an RPG title like this. Even if you only manage to sink 10 or 20 hours into its 40-some hour story, I think you'll be left fairly happy with your experience in Fallout 4. Again, if some of Bethesda's other RPG titles don't quite satisfy you. And if you're really not satisfied, and you really want punishment, then maybe you should look to Elden Ring. Rightfully Game of the Year across most award platforms. Again, some tension around God of War and other titles. Elden Ring is surprisingly 30% off on Steam, which is really quite surprising when you consider that it only released in 2022. It was Game of the Year, despite Bill Clinton's rabbi or whatever happened at the Game Awards getting in the way. And across the board, whether it was the average player or critics, reviewers, it didn't really matter. Elden Ring received incredible reviews. It's a Souls-like difficult RPG, of course. It's somewhat open world and an incredible cast of monsters, demons, you name it, to fight. It was a really enjoyable experience for me, and I don't really even play Souls-like games, which I think speaks to the credit that Elden Ring deserves, rightly. It tells an incredibly story-rich, detailed, incredibly fascinating and gruesome tale, and it's well worth picking up. Again, for Souls fans, but also non-Souls fans alike, I think you'll enjoy what Elden Ring offers, providing, of course, you can deal with having to fight the same boss a few times. Next, another controversial entry, and a game that had a rocky start when it released. In December of 2020, this is Cyberpunk 2077. It's a sci-fi RPG, open world, but I probably don't need to tell you that already. The interesting thing about it, well, actually there are two. Firstly, it's 50% off. Best discount we've seen, first equal, not a bad price, $40, one of the more expensive entries on this list, but it is relatively new, could be worthwhile getting. The other thing to note though is that it's received a lot of updates since its release. It's one of those sort of No Man's Skies titles that, while it had a rocky, difficult launch, seems to be making incredible progress, not just in performance, but also in the stories that it's telling. And of course the trailer that you're watching here is about DLC releasing in 2023, so it's clear that Cyberpunk 2077 has a future ahead of it, and it's one that continues to be moving brighter and brighter. We'll have to wait and see. And then lastly, the final entry on my list, it is the wonderful Red Dead Redemption 2. It released from Rockstar, of course, authors of GTA and other wonderful story-rich, questionably titles, but actually Red Dead Redemption 2 tells a better story than almost any of their other games, and it does it in a wonderful, Western-inspired, of course, open world, the new frontier. Red Dead Redemption 2 has won so many awards you couldn't even count them, and rightly so. And while it gives you access to Red Dead Online, really, the thing here is the epic story of outlaw Arthur Morgan and the gang of his motley crew who run across America just at, of course, the dawn of modernity, Industrial Revolution, and, as you can see, a whole load of conflicts. It tells a really interesting story. It puts us in a variety of strange, deep, and sometimes dark places, and I can highly recommend it to you at 67% off. Thank you so much for joining me. Let me know what I missed down in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.